Think sexy, and chances are you'll think Victoria's Secret, a brand that changed the lingerie landscape forever. With catalogs that rival the Sports Illustrated swimwear edition in popularity and an army of impossibly perfect angels, Victoria's Secret made moguls out of models and redefined the standard of beauty for an entire generation. Consumers and models alike wanted a piece of the Victoria's Secret mystique.
Being a Victoria's Secret angel is like rock star status.
When you found out that you were chosen, what did you do?
I ran home and I did a dance. I was like, oh.
Tyra and Giselle, you didn't even have to have a last name to go with it. You knew exactly who they were.
CEO Les Wexner and marketing chief Ed Razik had brilliantly tapped into the minds and wallets of its male and female customers, selling a fantasy of attainable, everyday sexy that raked in billions.
They created fierce brand loyalty with their catalog and fashion show.
It's actually overwhelmingly exceeded all of our imaginations.
But for some, the Victoria's Secret fantasy was a nightmare. For the first time on camera, women behind the scenes at Victoria's Secret pull back the curtain and reveal what it was really like to work for the brand.
What people didn't see was it was a company of women led by two men.
I'm well aware of what was happening. I've heard horror stories from other young ladies.
While angels publicly embodied the image of female sexual empowerment, off the runway, allegations were being raised that a culture of toxicity was steadily growing.
She has a great body and a great walk.
Beautiful. Almost every single person I know who has left Victoria's Secret has an NDA.
Today, brands like Savage X Fenty are ruling the runway with body-positive models and products, while Victoria's Secret's male-centric marketing strategies proved to be costly. With the survival of the once iconic lingerie juggernaut unknown, True Hollywood Story takes a look at the success and the controversies that impacted one of the world's top lingerie brands. How did the brand that helped launch the careers of Giselle, Tyra, and Heidi and generate billions of dollars in sales come to be? On the surface, it seemed Victoria's Secret was designed for women. But in reality, it wasn't.
What makes a lady sexy? Peekaboo negligees? Cutaway cleavage? You bet, say thousands of customers.
In the 1970s, the cultural vibe in America was all about women's sexual liberation, and manufacturers of women's lingerie began to capitalize on that. What were once practical undergarments had turned into racy new intimates, largely purchased by men for the women in their lives. But for one male customer, the bright lights of department stores made for a less than ideal shopping experience.
In 1977, businessman Roy Raymond was trying to buy some lingerie for his wife at a department store. He did not love the experience. There is bright lighting and a lot of people. He wanted something different than your average department store could give you.
In 1977, Raymond opened his first lingerie store in Palo Alto, California. He named it Victoria's Secret after the Victorian era and to allude to the secret hidden underneath the clothes. The products may have been for women, but they were clearly intended to please men.
They made the store look inviting, but also something that was a little decadent and a little naughty, so that you would want to stay and linger.
Roy Raymond was relentless in his pursuit of an even more intimate and male-friendly shopping experience. So, in late 1977, he created the very first mail-order Victoria's Secret catalog, which allowed men to shop from the privacy of their homes. The catalog sold for $3 a piece, accounting for more than half of the company's annual sales. After being in business for 5 years, the lingerie-only store and catalog concept caught the eye of retail giant Leslie Wexner, the founder of Limited Brands, which included The Limited and Lane Bryant.
Victoria's Secret got on Les Wexner's radar, and he bought it for $1 million in 1982.
It was rumored that Victoria's Secret was on the verge of bankruptcy when Les Wexner bought the 5 stores and 40-page catalog from Roy Raymond. In the years after the sale, Raymond struggled personally and professionally, while Victoria's Secret grew into the biggest lingerie company in the country. In 1993, Raymond jumped to his death from the Golden Gate Bridge. His body was later found on the shores of Angel Isle. It was the brand's first public tragedy. Wexner took Raymond's brand and quickly turned it into a money-making machine. With the help of advertising executive Ed Razik and PR executive Monica Mitro, the stage was set to take the company to the next level.
When we acquired the business, we really changed the whole image, and it really took off. These two also? America was really ready for it.
It had a different mood lighting compared to if you just walked into a Macy's to buy lingerie.
We're trying to make it easier and easier for men to come into our stores.
Victoria's Secret associates were trained to talk to men. Like, obviously, you're shopping for your wife or your girlfriend, what do you need? So that vibe definitely helped people go to the stores.
In the quest to further develop and expand his vision of the brand, inspired by the success of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, Wexner revamped the Victoria's Secret catalog to make it even more suggestive.
When I worked for Victoria's Secret, it was like one of the top paying catalogs, so that was great. It was different than other catalogs in that you're selling sex because that was their brand. You're doing pajamas and nighties and things like that, so it was definitely a sexy element to it.
So they created fierce brand loyalty with their catalog, which became an opportunity for men to pass it around the office as if they're looking at Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue.
It was so funny because men would always say, "Oh, I read that all the time." Really? What do you read? The sizes? Like, it's a catalog.
For models like Suzanne Lanza, who worked for the company for 6 years, the Victoria's Secret catalog became one of the most coveted and reliable jobs in fashion.
They treated us really well. Any girls who worked for Victoria's Secret made a lot of money. They got the best hair and makeup people, the best photographers. I worked for them the longest out of anyone in my career. I used to joke with friends that my house is like the house that Victoria's Secret bought because I worked with them for so long.
By the early 1990s, after nearly a decade, the new and improved Victoria's Secret was paying big dividends.
There were hundreds of retail stores across shopping malls, and the company actually became the largest lingerie company in the United States.
In 1991, Ed Razik took a huge risk, encouraging Wexner to venture into uncharted territory for the brand, the lucrative fragrance market. It proved to be yet another bullseye.
You're thinking about who is my future consumer, what could I get them in the door buying right now? The fragrance can definitely go into that.
Think about it, you're 12 and you're with an older sister and she's shopping for corsets and lingerie and you're wondering, well, gee, what can you buy? Well, you're steered over to the bath bombs or the bath oil or the body spray. That's where they were brilliant in terms of their merchandising strategy.
In 1995, Wexner and Razik wanted to position the brand as even more luxe and hit upon a masterstroke that would elevate the brand and take it where no lingerie retailer had ever been before. The runway.
Obviously, there were fashion shows, the houses, Paris, London, New York. But for a company associated with the mall saying, we're gonna be playing at those levels, that was new.
Hi, I'm Monica.
Ed Razik and PR executive Monica Mitro handpicked the Glamazons to walk in the world's first lingerie runway show.
Before Victoria's Secret, fashion was really ruled by this heroin chic look. Models like Kate Moss, who are super skinny, very bony, very pale. That is the look that was in. So when Victoria's Secret exploded in the 90s, all of a sudden you saw this glamazon. Flat stomachs, rock hard abs, and very large breasts. That was the look of every single Victoria's Secret model.
In 1995, the Glamazons took to the runway for the first Victoria's Secret fashion show at New York City's Plaza Hotel. It was an unprecedented hit.
It's actually overwhelmingly exceeded all of our imaginations how good the show could be.
But it was just the beginning. Over the next few years, Rasick and Les Wexner took the runway show even bigger, making it the event of the year for models and spectators alike.
Models know that once they're in our show, they're going to be recognized and be noticed.
The guys at the newsstand know your name. It's a really good kind of attention to have.
You found out that you were chosen. What did you do?
I ran home and I did a dance. I was like, all right.
Ed Rasick and Les Wexner normalized their glamazon standard of beauty for the masses, and it paid off. Victoria's Secret dominated lingerie retail with 780 stores and $1.5 billion in annual sales by 1997. But Victoria's Secret was selling more than just bras and panties.
Every single woman on the runway looked the same. They had a very tiny waistline, they had very large breasts. This perfect image was what they were selling.
But at the time, Wexner's brand was shattering sales records and redefining what is sexy. A dark side to the fantasy was growing off the runway.
On the forefront, Victoria's Secret was all about glitz and glamour, female empowerment, owning your sexuality, but behind the scenes, there was actually a toxic culture.
Coming up.
Modeling for Victoria's Secret. There is a code you have to follow.
And later,
I just went to the bathroom and was shaking and crying and just what just happened to me.
in the late 90s, thanks to the success of the Victoria's Secret fashion show, the brand was not only a global sensation, it became a staple in most women's closets. To continue to expand the company, in 1997, Les Wexner created an icon that would forever fix Victoria's Secret in the mind of consumers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria's Secret's Angels.
The concept for Angels came from our chairman. I was with him in Milan, Italy. And he said, you should call them Angels. Well, the minute you had the name, you know what you can do with it.
Wexner's concept of an elite core of models handpicked to walk the Victoria's Secret runway included selling the idea of female empowerment that cleverly tapped into the girl power movement that permeated the 1990s. On the surface, it worked, and many angels were able to parlay that status into big bucks.
Being one of the angels could catapult your career to a new level. And you hear that from the models.
Perfect. If you get a contract as a Victoria's Secret Angel, it's a big deal because it's a multi-million-dollar contract. The smart ones have been able to leverage the power of what they've done to do other things. They are brands, and they understand that they're brands.
I've been offered millions and millions of dollars to do so many different things.
Tyra and Giselle, you didn't even have to have a last name to go with it. You knew exactly who they were.
Inez.
You know Inez.
Hi, dear.
How are you?
But for the Angels, big paychecks meant high standards set by Ed Rasick.
We're looking for people who have a special quality coming down the runway because it's tough to walk down a runway that long in lingerie, no matter how confident you are.
My wings are really, really long, and they kind of rest on the top of my butt, so when I walk, they go kind of like that.
They have beautiful bodies, they have great personalities, and personality is a huge part of a runway show.
Hello, Lorena. My name is Ed.
And Monica.
When you look at Victoria's Secret models, what you don't realize is they have become the beauty standard that all women are judged by, but they're also the beauty standard that they are judged by.
Because it's a lingerie show. Everything is out, everything is exposed, it's not still, it's live, you see everything, you can't retouch anything. It's serious, like everyone in this town is here.
She has a great body and a great walk.
But as a 2020 New York Times expose pointed out, the pressures of being an angel could be intense.
Getting those coveted angel wings was a designation that could rocket them into international stardom, but that came at a cost.
Model Salida Ebanks, who earned her wings in 2005, struggled to maintain the brand's strict standard of beauty.
Modeling for Victoria's Secret, there is a code you have to follow. There is expectation to maintain this size. And unfortunately, we are going against Mother Nature. It's not something that's natural, it's not something that should happen. And it's tough, it really is.
It's really hard for a lot of the Victoria's Secret models to have the kind of self-worth that the rest of us have because it's all about their appearance and nobody wants to hear what they have to say.
According to the New York Times, the pressure to stay thin, yet still maintain curves, was taking a bigger and bigger toll on the models.
I've actually had models from back in those days tell me that they would eat an apple during the day and pretty much nothing else.
There was definitely pressure to be a certain size. When I look back on pictures now, I'm like, I was so skinny. I was 5'10", 125 pounds. That's like really tiny.
Where do you do that?
Models struggled to fit into the narrow box Ed Razek and Les Wexner had created for the women.
Have a present!
Salida Ebanks experienced that pressure firsthand.
I remember being so skinny that I was getting bullied, like at the grocery store, at the airport, like other people would say really mean things. The pressure was coming from all directions, within myself and from the outside world. When you're being encouraged to have to look a certain way, especially when you're tied to such a sexy brand. This is a job, right?
The pressure to maintain the brand's uber-thin yet curvaceous standard of beauty never let up.
The breakdown is all mental. And when there's executives giving you ultimatums, either you lose weight or you lose your contract, it's a scary thought, but it was a reality.
Do you mind if she just does it from the door this way? Leilani, I just want to get the perspective of being at the show.
According to the New York Times expose, Angels in Hell, as the success of the Victoria's Secret brand and its angels grew, the more powerful Ed Razek became. To land the biggest contract in fashion, models claimed they were increasingly subjected to nightmarish casting sessions.
I had a colleague who said, if I had $1 for every sexual harassment email that came across my desk, I wouldn't have to work anymore.
The idea of toxic masculinity in any work environment, it's all about sex and selling sex.
Coming up, the hottest ticket in town.
The Victoria's Secret fashion show became a moment. It definitely took the brand to the next level. Victoria's Secret is culture.
And later,
this was somebody that could make or break your career.
In 1999, now viewed by some as Wexner's proxy and eager to grow the brand to global domination, Ed Razek took the runway show to an online audience, partnering with Mark Cuban's Broadcast.com and IBM. The first streamed Victoria's Secret runway show hit the web on February 2nd. It broke the internet.
Over 250,000 people tried to access the site at virtually the same time, and it turned IBM's firewall into jelly.
In 1999, that was a huge number, and they were really the first to do this.
Razek and Wexner quickly realized the potential of selling the Victoria's Secret illusion to an even bigger audience on television.
Victoria's Secret is synonymous with their fashion show. A lot of people maybe have never even shopped there, but they certainly tuned in to watch that runway show. This was genius branding and marketing on the part of Victoria's Secret.
In 2001, ABC broadcast the show to an astounding 12.4 million viewers eager to watch the Angels strut their stuff.
I'm going to be walking down the runway in my underwear. I'm wearing a $12.5 million bra and a $750,000 panty to match.
The first televised Victoria's Secret fashion show was a smash hit, broadcasting the brand's image of perfection into living rooms across the country.
When you put the show into the living room that's very, very intimate, that has power. There wasn't a lot of diversity within body types. And with the power of TV at that time, it was very much a one-way street, telling you, the consumer, this is what we're giving you, and fit into that box.
By 2002, the Victoria's Secret Angels and televised runway show were attracting some of the biggest names in entertainment to the VS party.
We want the television audience to be really into it, so we added musical acts. We have Destiny's Child, we have Mark Anthony, we have Phil Collins.
Why do you think this is one of the hottest shows in New York?
Because it's lingerie, and they think we're going to be half naked down the runway, and they all want to come see.
The show is the Super Bowl for supermodels.
The Victoria's Secret fashion show definitely became a moment. It definitely took the brand to the next level. Victoria's Secret is culture. They're not just clothing anymore. It's something else that they're giving to society.
Victoria's Secret was always on the hunt for the next impossibly perfect angel to walk their coveted runway. In 2005, supermodel Selena Ebanks joined the ranks.
I think I'm going to pass out backstage, but I'm extremely ecstatic and just very honored to be here.
There's nothing like when they say go, right before you get on that runway. My heart, my feet sweat, my palms sweat. I've been on many runways, but to be a part of the Victoria's Secret fashion show for me was more than just a job. It was the highlight.
But Ebanks had a difficult time fitting in with the other models.
My life changed drastically, like overnight. All of a sudden, people know your name. You find out friends that you thought were friends were not necessarily friends. A lot of other models didn't think that I was deserving of this contract. So I had to basically fight my way into their circle.
And ladies, right here, please.
Not only was the competition among angels fierce, according to the New York Times expose, even models who felt safe heard whispers of problems inside the brand.
There were one or two times where things could have been inappropriate, but never to the point where I felt like I was being disrespected. Thankfully, I wasn't put in those situations. But I'm well aware of what was happening. I've heard horror stories from other young ladies, and I had hoped that everything done in the dark will come to light.
According to the 2020 New York Times expose and a lawsuit filed by a stockholder of L Brands, John Giarratano, Razek's inappropriate behavior was exposing the company to the risk of substantial liability.
In the case of Victoria's Secret, there have been non-disclosure agreements tied to sexual harassment claims, and part of those settlements prevented women from speaking. I do believe sexual harassment is a form of an abuse of power. It is I am so important to this organization that I'm untouchable.
I think it has to be expensive.
Just make it the same. It's her cheek showing it. Just because a woman agrees to wear bras and panties for a living doesn't mean that you have access to her body or you have access to touch her in any way.
Agents were telling models to just deal with it to get the paycheck. You know, Victoria's Secret was massive.
The New York Times article Angels in Hell included a detailed account of Ed Razek's pursuit of model Andy Muse. According to Muse, Razek invited her to dinner, sent her intimate emails, and even suggested they move into his Caribbean vacation home together. Muse told the New York Times that Razek's attention made her uneasy, and that when she rebuffed him for the first time in 4 years, she was not hired for the Victoria's Secret runway show.
There was a lot of inappropriate touching and inappropriate comments.
This was a powerful man that could make or break your career.
Razek has consistently denied all allegations of sexual harassment and abuse. Coming up.
There were undergarments and t-shirts with suggestive phrases. Victoria's Secret got a ton of bad press.
And later.
Ed would say things like, "You're too fat to work with us."
By 2004, Victoria's Secret was the world leader in not only lingerie, but a sassy, sexy lifestyle brand that included fragrance, cosmetics, swimwear, clothing, and athletic wear. But behind the scenes, rumors of a misogynistic culture continue to grow. Also in 2004, revelations that convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was managing Les Wexner's fortune surfaced.
Epstein and Les Wexner had a close tie for about a dozen years. At one point, Epstein was the power of attorney to Les Wexner. And so it was very eye-opening to people saying like, wow, one of the most powerful men in retail had this connection with this abuser.
Jeffrey Epstein was actually posing as a recruiter for Victoria's Secret. We now know that in at least 2 of those incidents, it ended up in the women being sexually assaulted by Jeffrey Epstein. Les Wexner was actually told about Jeffrey Epstein's behavior, but according to many executives who spoke to the New York Times, they said that he never acted on any of that information.
Wexner denied any knowledge of Epstein's predatory behavior and expressed sympathy for the victims.
Everyone has to feel enormous regret for the advantage that was taken of so many young women.
In July of 2004, the company's legendary pop culture status left Ed Razek and Les Wexner intoxicated by success. As with the fragrance line before, they set their sights on attracting younger consumers in the hopes of building lasting brand loyalty.
Victoria's Secret's decided to start their pink line because they figured, let's target very, very young Generation Z type customers.
It was kind of like Juicy Couture with their velour tracksuits, whereas it said juicy across the butt, while pink, it said pink across the butt. It enabled moms to take their daughters to the store and go shopping with them for age-appropriate undergarments.
You start seeing all ages in the supermarket wearing pink on their butts, and that was like the look. That was the trend.
By 2010, pink was clocking an astounding $1 billion in sales. But there was a fine line between sassy and sexy. In 2013, Pink announced a spring break collection called Bright Young Things. Customers were shocked by the overt objectification of young women the line represented.
There were undergarments and t-shirts with suggestive phrases such as I dare you, call me, even a shirt that said enjoy the view along the neckline. Victoria's Secret got a ton of bad press.
They're starting to hypersexualize girls who are still girls.
It really crossed the line and made it sexy, inappropriate, and creepy.
The backlash gained traction, resulting in Change.org gathering nearly 24,000 signatures on a petition calling for the company to pull the offensive products off the market.
To encourage this type of attention in young girls who aren't ready and mature enough for that type of attention was not really wise on their part.
The company maintained that the line was meant for college-aged girls, but later pulled links to the products off their website. It was another controversy and the first of many public missteps that would plague the brand as rumors of an even darker culture behind the camera swirled. Former Victoria's Secret PR assistant Casey Crow-Taylor claims she experienced that toxicity firsthand.
Growing up, when I was like 15, 16, watching the Victoria's Secret fashion show, I really wanted to do the behind-the-scenes work and be a part of a team and contribute to something that massive. So when I got the job, I was like, oh my God, my dreams are coming true. But when I started at Victoria's Secret, it wasn't really what I thought it would be, because Les would get credit for hiring female executives. But what people didn't see was that it was a company of women led by 2 men who could void and override all of them. The decision makers of the company were Les and Ed.
While Crow-Taylor regularly heard criticism of models for their appearance, she was stunned when it happened to her.
I remember one day, we were on set at Pier 59 Studios. We broke for lunch. I had my plate that I had just eaten off of, and I went up to get more. And Ed stopped me. He stepped in front of me, berating me like, are you really gonna go eat more bread? Do you think you need to eat more bread? Do you think you should eat more bread? And he started talking to the models about me and saying like, look at her, do you think she should eat more food? And then he turned to me and he said, I don't know how you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and you're okay with that. And so Monica was like, Ed, stop, like, just leave her alone. He didn't, he kept going on. I just went to the bathroom and like was shaking and crying and just like, what just happened to me?
According to the New York Times expose, Crow-Taylor claims that other women working for the brand had been similarly mistreated.
There are women that I worked with on my team that much worse things happened to them. I was definitely held to a pretty high standard when I was at Victoria's Secret, and if I had done any of the things that Ed did, I definitely would have been fired. I went to my boss and I said to her, I was like, it feels really hard to come to work after what happened with Ed. I want to formally report it. I just feel like that might help me get some closure to move on from it. I just felt disrespected and so undervalued. I did my exit interview over the phone. I told him, I was like, I'm resigning. I want to make sure that there's a formal complaint against Ed and Monica, and that they're the reason that I resigned.
In their Victoria's Secret article, the New York Times reported that multiple internal harassment claims were filed against Ed Razek. In a lawsuit brought against the company by shareholder John Giarratano, it was alleged that Ed Razek engaged in systematic sexual harassment and other misconducts during his decades-long tenure at L Brands.
The New York Times, they actually wrote about an alleged instance when Bella Hadid was in the middle of a fitting for the runway show, and Ed Razek made a comment about how perfect her breasts were. This is one of the biggest models with tens of millions of Instagram followers. He still felt comfortable to say that about her in a room that was full of people.
Razek denied the allegations of abuse, stating that he had the utmost respect for models and had never harassed them. Coming up,
Monica Mitro made a complaint formally to HR. The very next day, she was put on administrative leave.
And later,
hundreds of stores closed. Victoria's Secret is in the position of trying to win back customers.
After decades of global domination, Victoria's Secret was a household name. But over time, the toxic culture in the executive ranks
It's the right length for it.
had allegedly grown more pervasive. As the company came under increased scrutiny for their marketing missteps and claims of a growing toxic culture, Victoria's Secret was also facing a reckoning for their narrow definition of beauty. By 2016, the market was asking for a celebration of diversity and body positivity, rejecting male definitions of what made a woman sexy. For consumers and employees, Les Wexner and Ed Razek's response was tone deaf.
Multiple employees told the Times that Les Wexner was asked about adapting to the times and perhaps showing women of all shapes and sizes. And he says nobody goes to a plastic surgeon and asks to make them fat. These reported details are very similar to Ed Razek's on-the-record interview with Vogue, when he said the public does not want to see plus-size models.
In my opinion, Victoria's Secret didn't change their course in the market, mostly because they were Victoria's Secret and they just had that attitude that they didn't have to adhere to what the market was asking for.
The illusion of female empowerment Ed Razek had been selling for decades crumbled. And for the first time in the company's history, Victoria's Secret sales fell in the last quarter of 2016, costing the company nearly $40 million in revenue.
It's a reckoning, if you will, of women saying, we're claiming our own manifest destiny. And what you have now is young women of every size saying, we're not going to have somebody dictating to us what's sexy, what's alluring, and what's empowering. Because different sizes, different shapes can all be sexy and provocative, but it will be on our terms. And the consumer is now in the driver's seat driving that message, and that's a real shift.
Sales lagged into 2017, and the brand discontinued its once iconic catalog and dropped its swimwear line.
These are the people who purchase your product. And so if you're not going to pay attention to what they're communicating to you, then you're going to lose relevance in the eyes of this customer. At the end of the day, it's the customer that's the boss. And if your brand is not paying attention to the boss, then the boss will fire you.
By November 2018, viewers of the Victoria's Secret runway show effectively did fire the brand. With ratings down 30% from the previous year, Razek and Wexner canceled the show after 23 years.
I remember looking at some of those fashion shows, and I started to see, younger women who just thought it was so irrelevant.
Between 2016 and 2018, the once iconic brand lost $20 billion in market share. And with body-positive brands like Third Love and Rihanna's Savage X Fenty exploding, consumers wondered if Victoria's Secret would follow suit.
If you look at Rihanna's lingerie, that's the direction that Victoria's Secret needed to go in. That image of super tall, super skinny, super shiny women is just over.
There was these upstarts in the lingerie market that started saying, hey, we're for comfort. We're designed by women. We're thinking of you in a different way.
The two men running Victoria's Secret refused to listen to consumers, continuing to market a standard of beauty that customers found male, stale, and hopelessly out of touch.
You have to pay attention to the changing needs and wants of your customer base. Because if you don't do that, then you're not satisfying your customer, and that's really where they lost.
Then, in 2019, Jeffrey Epstein made headlines when his past behavior posing as a recruiter for Victoria's Secret came to light. Les Wexner denied any knowledge of Epstein's actions and said he was embarrassed that, depraved, Epstein took advantage of him. A few months later, Monica Mitro, Ed Razek's right hand for 25 years, filed a harassment complaint against Razek and a member of the L Brand's board of directors.
Monica Mitro confided to someone else who could tell the board, and the very next day, Monica Mitro was put on administrative leave. This just showcases the absolute power that Ed Razek was given.
According to the lawsuit filed by shareholder John Giarratano against the company, Mitro later reached a financial settlement which reportedly included a non-disclosure agreement that prevents her from speaking about the complaint.
The company says that we expect you not only not to speak about anything that's happened at the company or not speak poorly about the company, but you can't even tell people that you have this agreement with us. It's sort of the ultimate silencer.
On the heels of Monica Mitro's harassment complaint, Les Wexner announced in an internal memo that marketing chief Ed Razek would be retiring in August of 2019.
I wish I could say that it made me feel like relief, but it just dug up those bad feelings again.
In their annual meeting, held virtually in May of 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the L Brands board informed employees that CEO Les Wexner was also retiring. In early 2020, the New York Times had approached former PR assistant Casey Crowe Taylor to be a part of their expose, Angels in Hell, to shed light on the multiple complaints of misogyny, bullying, and sexual harassment lodged against Ed Razek by models and Victoria's Secret staffers.
When the New York Times reached out to me, I just kept telling myself, I just don't want it to happen to someone else. I kind of felt a little bit of a responsibility. Like, okay, the truth needs to come out about Ed.
Coming up,
they're still marketing that man's fantasy to women.
By 2020, Victoria's Secret was under fire for allegations of sexual misconduct against marketing chief Ed Razek, reported in a New York Times expose. Razek adamantly denied any wrongdoing, stating, "The accusations in this reporting are categorically untrue, misconstrued, or taken out of context."
People need to be held accountable for their actions when they are reported for public shaming, verbal harassment, sexual harassment, no matter what power they hold.
L Brands released a statement in November of 2020 asserting that the company had amended their board governance, made significant policy changes, and initiated a robust diversity and inclusion strategy.
L Brands has said that they strive to be better and that they will have full accountability. You can't just do harassment training, you have to really mean it.
But customers were already abandoning the lingerie giant in droves.
Unless they can cultivate a younger customer, they're going to really have a challenging time being relevant to this new generation.
After Razek and Wexner left the company, L Brands added 2 women to their board of directors. Another way the brand attempted to embrace a new era of inclusivity was the hiring of transgender model Valentina Sampaio and plus-size model Allie Tate in 2019.
Look at the applique in there. So cute.
I think women, we come in different shapes, sizes. I think inclusion is awesome. It was due.
All they did was hire 2 diverse models. They're still marketing that man's fantasy to women. The only way to really start over for them is a totally brand new everything.
Women will be silent no more.
The Me Too movement had a tremendous impact on the modeling industry. It sent more of a message of you can be an attractive, beautiful woman without having a size 0 figure.
Victoria's Secret either wouldn't or just didn't realize that society was changing away from them. Hundreds of stores closed, so with women saying, hey, we want something different, Victoria's Secret is in the position of trying to win back customers.
In February of 2020, a group of models banded together with the backing of the Models Alliance to demand that Victoria's Secret make changes to their corporate culture.
The Models Alliance asked Victoria's Secret to sign their code of conduct, so by doing that, they're really holding the company accountable.
That code of conduct gives models, employees, and contractors access to an independent body that can hear harassment complaints and enforce consequences for abusers. Representatives from the Alliance met with L Brand's Chief Communications Officer Tammy Roberts-Myers in September, who assured them that L Brands shared a common goal to ensure the safety and well-being of models. But after failing to become a signatory to the Models Alliance Code of Conduct, Roberts-Myers stated that Victoria's Secret was simply in the process of continued learning and listening when it came to dealing with complaints by its models. L Brands added that it was always open to engage with those looking to make improvements in the industry. According to the New York Times, as of late 2020, there were still multiple internal harassment cases on file against Ed Razek. Razek continues to deny any wrongdoing. After the New York Times 2020 expose, consumers and employees came out in force to demand change from Victoria's Secret.
I say victorious, you say silence, victorious. Silence. Silence.
I'm hoping that that time is over, where executives can do whatever they want.
Welcome to the unpacks and workplace march! Women now know that if they come forward with their story, it's not just going to be silenced anymore.
People were saying, I am going to stand here for my sister or my niece or my mother or my grandmother or my sorority sister or a neighbor. Any type of attitude or branding or messaging or marketing that promotes this notion that women are simply objects to be abused will not be tolerated.
If you're in a workplace where you don't feel safe or you're being subjected to that type of behavior by someone else, don't be ashamed. Don't feel that you're in this by yourself. A lot of women have experienced exactly the same thing you have.
Can you make a chick say I can?
If we just talk about it, then it's almost impossible for that person to just walk around with his head held high.
Time's up! Time's up!
I truly believe that we as women, when we come together, we can move mountains.
Time's up! Time's up!